Thank you. I'm now honored to introduce Senator Saxby Chambliss, who has been such an important member of the Senate Armed Services Committee and really someone who has strongly stood to preserve the A-10 for our troops from the beginning.
Thanks very much, Senator Ayotte, and thank you for your just dogged support of this weapon system for all the right reasons. And I want to quickly say that, you know, the Air Force is in a tough spot. We all know that. We know sequestration is having a huge impact on the budget, and I'm very confident that under the leadership of John McCain on the Armed Services Committee next year, that we're going to make some corrections in sequestration. The Air Force has basically made their recommendation to Congress on the retirement of the A-10. It's imperative that members of Congress take the information that the Air Force has and make our decision not just based on what the Air Force recommends, but also it's imperative that we take information from those folks who have their boots on the ground. You're going to hear from a constituent of mine, Master Sgt. Tim Stamey, here in a minute. He was a JTAC. He was responsible for directing close air support to the right location for destruction of the enemy. And it's men and women like him that we also have to listen to, and then we have to make an informed decision about weapon systems. And when you talk to folks on the ground, I don't care what branch of the service they come from, but if they got their boots on the ground, they are dependent on the A-10. The Air Force simply has not had a long-range plan for retirement of the A-10 and bringing in the F-35. What we're saying to the Air Force is, look, we understand you're going to the F-35. We've got too much money invested to do otherwise. It's a great weapon system. But in the meantime, we've got to make sure that whatever venue we're in, and John McCain has hit it on the nose, you tell us where we're going to fight next, we'll tell you what weapon systems we need. But we've been wrong 100% of the time when we try to predict where that's going to be. The A-10 is a needed weapon system as we transition to the F-35, and we would be foolish to retire those airplanes at this point in time.
And now I'm honored to introduce Congressman Scott, also a strong advocate for the A-10. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And you know, Secretary Hagel and General Dempsey are testifying before the Armed Services Committee right now about the potential actions in Iraq, Syria, and other areas of the Middle East. And we're using this weapon system right now. It works. It is the best at what we need to provide for our men and women in close air support. The Air Force's proposal is to get rid of the system that is working right now and being used right now in the hopes that we'll have a system that would actually be based 6, 7, 8 years from now. We understand that as time goes on, the A-10 will be replaced with the F-35. But it makes absolutely no sense to take a weapon system away that works perfectly good right now for the fights that we're in right now, based on the promise that we'll have another weapon system in 5, 6, or 7 years. When the F-35 starts coming off the assembly line and we start to base the F-35, then I'll accept that at that stage the A-10 will be replaced with the new weapon system. I represent Moody Air Force Base, home of the 23rd Wing, 2 squadrons of A-10 Warthogs. I get the opportunity to see them fly through the air. And I can tell you, that weapon system is intimidating to our enemies. I am proud when I have my wife and my kid with me to talk about the A-10 and what it does and the cover that it provides and the men and the women that it saved. Now, this decision from the Air Force, I think they will tell you, is being budget driven. This is not something that they want to do. It's something that's being forced on them by an administration that's forcing unreasonable cuts on our military and the men and women that are out there serving this country. I want to thank Senator Ayotte for her support. I want to thank my colleagues from the House for their support of this system. And as Congressman Barber said, this has been a broad, bipartisan issue where we are all supporting the men and women that are out there on the front line and standing up for this weapon system.
And I'm very honored to introduce Master Sergeant retired Tim Stamey. As I've already said, he is an incredible Air Force combat veteran. We're so grateful for his service. He's a Silver Star recipient and former JTAC.
I know you've been sitting here for a while, and I'll have to apologize straight up front. I'm just a crusty old Master Sergeant. This isn't going to be eloquent, but it's going to be from the heart. Thank you so much for everything the senators and stuff here are doing, and I urge all the other senators and representatives to do the same thing. What the Air Force is doing, in my opinion, is a travesty. I'm just a poor retired enlisted guy. I came up here to speak to y'all to try to get, to pass on what I think about this and what all the other JTACs I work with think about this and the travesty they are doing it. Okay, I didn't come up here for politics. I didn't come up here to try to get a job with a defense contractor. It wasn't one of my decisions, nor to be on a late night news show or whatever. I came up here to do what's right. Like she said, I'm retired Air Force Master Sergeant Tim Stamey. I was one of the first JTACs into Afghanistan after 9/11. I was one of the guys initially anyway, running around with a beard, long hair, riding horses. Prior to that, in the 90s, I actually went and taught at the B-1 and the B-52 weapons schools on teaching them to be able to drop bombs, 4 guys on the ground, behind enemy lines in a TGO operation. Not a close air support, a TGO. No integration with the scheme and maneuver of the battlefield, just to drop the bombs out there for us. I know their limitations and what they're capable of. I've controlled 16s, 15s, A-10s, AC-130s, B-1s, B-52s, F-18s, foreign aircraft. I've controlled lots of aircraft. As JTACs, if you cut me, I bleed green. Okay, I may be retired Air Force, but as JTACs, we go from Army post to Army post. We're attached to every Army combat unit. I spent the majority of my time with Special Operations attached to Special Forces Green Berets. And we live with those guys. We fight with them. They're my brothers. Okay, and those guys that are out there doing that are enlisted guys. Okay, and 90% of them come from middle-class families. They just have a high school education, and their parents happen to be the people that are supporting or doing the preponderance, pay the preponderance of the taxes for this country. And I wish the other senators and representatives would think about that and who this A-10 really supports. It's those guys. It's the A-10's not sexy. It ain't pretty when it flies over, but it's big and ugly, and it does what we need it to do. As Charlie was talking about, the A-10 coming in there. As a JTAC, and I've got aircraft stacked up, which, at times you can get plenty of them if you're the only one needing the air to come in. You'll pick and choose which aircraft you want to bring in first. And we got a thing, you shoot the 50-meter targets first, the ones that are closer to you. And I will bring in the A-10 every time to get the close targets to me and work the other ones out. Why? Because it's the safest. It's the safest for us. It's the best at they're the best at that. That is their mission, close air support. And as a JTAC, when you got aircraft coming in, you pray that you get an A-10 in because you know that it's safer to do that for you. And nothing other than our Father in heaven reassures and protects the friendly forces and scatters the enemy like an A-10. None of them. I warned you, I'm not eloquent. A lot of the other aircraft can do CAS, but it's not their number one role. They have multi-missions that they have to do, so they don't spend as much time training for it. The pilots don't, and their aircraft are not as capable. The A-10 has a titanium tub which protects the pilot. The jets are situated over the rear horizontal stabs, okay, to protect it from being shot down with bullets coming in. It has a GAL-8 Avenger 30-millimeter cannon. And the other fighters that do have guns shoot this. This is what the A-10 shoots. It's a tank killer. It can take out any armor in the world. It is awesome. Now, if you've got guys in trenches, and these places we go to, these people have been fighting for hundreds of years. They've got trenches and spider holes and stuff dug everywhere. And you can have a bomber come over and drop all these bombs. They hit the ground, they blast, and the shrapnel goes over the top of them. But that A-10 can get down in the dirt, and he can strafe those trench lines. And I know this isn't what you want to hear, but you know what? Combat isn't what anybody wants to see or hear. But when you're out there and you're getting shot at, and everything's going to crap, you know, people talk, oh, you can use a B-1 with JDAMs. I tell you what, you tell me how many guys can give you accurate coordinates when they're just trying to stay alive and the bullets are flying over. I'd rather have an A-10 pilot who's used to this coming in, and he can talk to me, and he can work with me, and he can assess the situation. That's what they're trying to do. Other things with the A-10s that they're trained to do, the pilots are trained to do, the other pilots aren't trained to do. JATs, Joint Air Attack Teams, and that's working with helicopters. None of the other aircraft practice that with the Army, but the A-10 does. Flying with NVGs, night vision goggles. I've flown in F-16s before. You know, you try to see something on the ground flying at those speeds, you can't do it. It's a blur. But the A-10, he can sit up there, he can fly low and slow. They'll tilt over and fly like this so they can see out the cockpit. And not only that, instead of showing up with 20 minutes of playtime, for you to 20 minutes of playtime. Playtime is how much time that he has to spend with you before he's out of fuel, bingo, and has to RTB, return to base. A-10 shows up, he's going to have 50 minutes to an hour of loiter time. That's huge. To what? Forgive me if I use a sports analogy on this, but the A-10, like I said, he's not a jack of all trades. His focus is CAS. Okay, all the other aircraft the Air Force have, they try to do a multitude of different missions, and they'll try to do a little bit of CAS. 10 seconds left on the clock. You're on the 40-yard line, okay? You're behind by 2 points, and you need to kick a field goal to win the game. You know what? The quarterback, he did punt, pass, and kick competition when he was, in high school. Are you going to send him out to kick the field goal? No, you're going to bring your field goal kicker out there because that's his job. That's what he does for a living. The Air Force says it can't afford the A-10. We can't afford to lose the A-10. The A-10 is the cheapest aircraft to maintain, CAS aircraft to maintain. So the fact they say they can't afford it, that's bull crap. Excuse my language. I keep in touch with all my brethren, and I tell you what, they all feel the same way I do. And there's so many of them that's lives have been saved by A-10s, that and the grunts that we work with. It's, I can't believe it's incredible that we're even talking about this. The world's too volatile and unpredictable right now. Wars and rumors of wars. Putin and what he's doing over in Ukraine. And we're looking at getting rid of this CAS aircraft when we don't have anything that can come anywhere close to doing what it's doing and not going to have for years and years and years. It's insane. Historically speaking, we've always planned to fight the next war the same as the war we just got through fighting. And I'm going to tell you right now, CAS, when you get in a deciduous environment with trees and everything, is much harder to do than it is in the desert. Everything's open in the desert. It's a lot easier. But what if we end up going to war in Eastern Europe again? We've already got rid of the A-10 squadron we had over in Europe, so we don't have them there to defend NATO. It's gone. South Korea, the Air Force is looking at getting rid of the A-10 squadron in South Korea next year. Really? Is North Korea no longer a threat? I just urge Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Air Force to do the right thing and listen to JTACs without any repercussions to them, because let's not fool ourselves. You know how that works. And I urge the rest of our senators and our representatives to do what the good senators and representatives are doing here, and that's to save the A-10 in order we can save the lives of the poor guys on the grunts on the ground that are living and doing this. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.